Good evening and welcome to Phipps Talk. We're so pleased to have you with us today. As usual, we bring you exciting thoughts, topics, and people. Today is no different. We're bringing you somebody very special today. A young lady that has done some marvelous things and has been lauded in many ways. Over the past couple weeks, we've been talking about transitions from one state to another. And as we talk about transitions, we hope that you are sort of connecting to some of these transitions, whether it's from domestic violence, whether it's from from poverty to wealth, whatever your transition needs to be. We're hoping that as you see these programs, you're able to connect to something that moves you forward in a very positive direction to help you to get where you want to go or where you need to be. Now, today's program is being brought to you by NID Housing Counseling, and that's an agency that does wonders for the community in terms of keeping people in homes and providing first-time homebuyer counseling and so forth, because we believe in stable communities, and stable communities are healthy communities. Now with that, we're going to go to our guest for today, Dr. Roberta Hoskie. Dr. Hoskie, a pleasure.
Pleasure's
mine. Oh, you over here?
I'm
good,
right
good.
here.
Good. Dr. Hoskie is going to share her story today with you. It's one that took her from welfare to wealthy. And it's a journey that I'm sure many would like to take. And today, the blueprint is here. Dr. Hoskie.
Yes.
Thanks for being on the program.
It's my pleasure, my pleasure.
I know that you have an awesome story, a wonderful story, a story with lots of exciting pieces in it. Mm-hmm. And I want you to start, tell us your vision and how your vision moved you from where you were to where you are now. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay. So I have to, if we talk about a vision, I have to think back on when I really had to envision myself at a better place in life, and it was at a point where it would have been perceived as my lowest point in life. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was a single mother, teenage mother, 17,
Woo.
On welfare, getting $417 a month, and considered homeless.
Wow.
And at that point, it was very stressful.
I can imagine.
And here I am, I'm raising a kid, but I'm a baby, right? And so I am raising a brown boy in the 90s. And
Challenging, I'm telling you.
Yeah, a brown boy. And so I'm scared.
Wow.
So I'm very scared about his life and the outcomes in his life. Mm-hmm. And, I was raised in the projects, 22 members of my family, as I had to count as I just launched my first book. Mm-hmm. But I had to count 22 members in the same projects of my family. Mm-hmm. My father, he was around, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. My mother became a single mother on welfare, and it's just cyclical. Mm-hmm. But I lost my first boyfriend to gun violence.
Wow.
And leaving my house, gunpoint to his chest, lost many friends in the crime scene in the urban community. And so here I am scared for my baby because he's a brown boy. And so statistics were showing me that I'm gonna lose my baby, one, to the jail cells, to the system, 6 feet under, and Lord forbid, to the streets as well. And so the stats were stacked against him. And I realized, and if I be totally transparent, it was a time where I went to church. Mm-hmm. And there was a guest preacher there. And he called me out, and I'm like, oh gosh, no, please, no, leave me alone. Like, no, please, God, no.
Not this moment.
No. But he did. He called me out, and he says, let me explain something to you. And I had my son on my hip. Mm-hmm. He said, let me explain something to you. His life is totally dependent on yours. And as simple as that sounds, it ricocheted.
Wow.
Because I realized I had nothing to offer him.
Wow.
His father was a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
He was looking at possibly doing time, so he had nothing to offer him either. So I got scared. Mm-hmm. And I realized that if my son was going to make it out of the hood, I had to pave a way for him. And it was really a mother's love of perseverance. And not knowing how it was going to be done, just knowing it had to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that, in urban communities, there are many stories that sort of reflect or mimic yours in terms of the path that many take.
Yes.
We lose many people of color to gun violence, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Boston, whether it's, wherever, it's something that's very prominent in the communities of color.
Yes.
So to realize that you made such a choice early in life to avoid that because you know that your son depended on you, to me is very enlightening. Tell me more about that process.
It was my normal life until I realized that it wasn't normal. And I think it was Harriet Tubman said I would have been able to free more people had they known they were slaves.
Oh,
And so it goes back to a mindset shift.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. I had a mindset shift, and when I was in my shelter, and when I was in the shelter, my godparents came and took me out the shelter. I'll never forget it. I always get emotional, and I get emotional like this just happened, but it's so real. They took me out of the shelter and brought me into their home. And Richard, that was the first time I ever saw a single family home. I didn't know what the inside of a single family home looked like. I would imagine what the inside of a house looked like because I was a little girl in the projects.
How old were you then?
I was about 14.
14?
Yeah. And so I was a teenager, a homeless teenager. And so I would imagine what it looked like. I had never seen a master bedroom. I would almost pass out when I saw you mean to tell me you have a bathroom in your bedroom? Oh my gosh. So I saw that, and then I saw a walk-in closet. I was like, oh my goodness.
This is for real.
But yeah, and so here's the thing. This is how God is, and I say God a lot because I can't tell my story without really giving credit to where credit is due. Yeah. And so this is how God would have it to be, is because had that been a family that was not from my same background, didn't have the same color of my skin, I probably wouldn't have been able to say I can do this too. My godfather was from Brooklyn. So he's from the projects, and my godmother was from Newborn, North Carolina, from the projects of Newborn, North Carolina, and here they are in this beautiful home. Now they're pastors, but what they did is they shifted my mindset. They said, you know what? I don't care what's stacked against you. I don't care who left you. I don't care who gave up on you. I don't care who doubts you. I don't care who hates on you. You are still destined for greatness. And they didn't say it one time. They would say it over and over and over and over. And this is where I believe the mindset shift happens because of repetition. And so as I teach mindset shifting, it's about repetition. You can say something bad about a person over and over, and then eventually they'll believe it. But the opposite is true too. You can continue to say something good about the person, and eventually they believe it. So they taught me to see past my situation, past feeling so alone, past your mother putting you out, past you can't find your father, past being a high school dropout, past being a single mother, past all of this stuff to say I'm destined for greatness.
So I'm gonna sort of pause for a minute. We just touched a point that I want to go back to.
Okay.
With mom, you said mom put you out.
Yeah.
How did that process occur? Was it, what was that like for you as a 14-year-old getting?
Yeah, so as I wrote my book, you have to know I cried a lot. And I just cried, and it's emotional. I cannot say I was the perfect child. I was not. But as I wrote, it also, yeah, I know. As I wrote, it was also therapy and gave me enlightening about myself. So I was, as my mother would call, rebellious. That's what she would say. I would say I was torn, and I had daddy issues because I was a daddy's girl, and all of a sudden, daddy didn't come home anymore. And so in the African American community, at least when I was growing up, we didn't go seek counseling. We didn't do that.
I was just, an option.
It wasn't an option. It never came across the table. Like maybe she's going through something because dad's not here, and maybe she's going through something because you're working all the time. And so there's issues that we in the African American community and impoverished communities as a whole, we deal with. But we deal with the symptoms, but you don't get to the root of the issue. So to her, I was rebellious. To me, I was confused.
Makes sense.
And so we would always argue and we would always fight, and she would tell me, get the hell out. I was a kid from hell.
Wow.
And I'm sure I'm not the one that she thought would end up owning companies that's worth multi-millions.
Yes.
I'm sure she was the one that she thought I was most likely to fail when I now employ my brothers and sisters.
Wow.
So
That's impressive. But that's a good point that you bring. If one person steps out, they can help others. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the transition, you said you there was an awakening.
Yes.
At a spiritual moment, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Now, how did you move from that position where you were and the belief to a point where you can start making some baby steps, if you will, in terms of making the changes necessary? How did you know what changes you need to make?
And that is a very good question. I have to go off of my internal GPS system, and I believe that all of us have an internal GPS system. We really have something deep inside us if we slow down enough and be quiet enough to listen to, that's directing us to the place of success, the place that we really want to be. But the problem is we're so distracted. We have so many things going on in life, and we're so focused on negativity that we can't see the positivity that's right in front of us. And so for me, it was literally trying to stay in tune with my internal GPS system, but every time I look at my son, I had to do something. I was a high school dropout. I knew I had to go back to school.
So your son was your motivation, basically.
Oh, yeah.
You're seeing him and you're saying you don't want anything bad to happen.
No, not at all. He was my motivation. Motivation. Yes.
So you would say to our audience, they have to then find something that will move them.
Yeah. What I say, if you're going after something, what I found out is I'll give up on myself. But I wasn't giving up on my son.
Okay.
And so what I encourage people to do is figure out the why.
Yeah.
Why is it that you need to accomplish this? Why do you need to be financially free? And it can't have an I in it.
Yeah.
So it has to be about something bigger than you. It has to be, for people with children, I always say, leave a legacy. And far too often, we don't think about legacy or leaving wealth or inheritance. We leave bills and confusion. That's a whole nother topic, I know.
Far too often,
Yes.
people start thinking about the I. What am I going to do?
Yes.
And there's no reason, because the chaos inside sort of stops them from. But when you say something bigger than themselves, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, something bigger than you. And what are you here for? Purpose. And we loosely use that word purpose. But have you really identified why are you here? What impact are you supposed to make? Who is going to be different because you have been on earth? And so when you approach life from those lenses, things change for you, and they change for me. Yeah. Because I am on such a mission to break what I call the poverty curse, and that I am so focused on that I'm changing and helping as many people possible. My son, he's all set now. He graduated from college. He's a faculty member, the youngest faculty member, only African-American brown boy at his school, at Avon Farms Academy, which is a private school. So it didn't get him. The poverty curse stopped right here.
I heard about his big gift. And we're going to talk about that gift later on.
Okay.